50 years ago, last October, the state of Israel endured a surprise attack on the holiest day of the year, Yom Kippur. Faulty intelligence, questions how it happened, missed signals. It was not 2023 when the President of the United States called Benjamin Netanyahu on the first day of the war and said, "We have munitions and weapons stored in Israel for emergency use in NATO. They're yours." It was not 2023. In 2024, the United States has so far sent 450 cargo planes filled with full of free ammunition, munitions, high caliber weapons. Or the United States has put 2 aircraft carriers and a nuclear submarine to send messages to certain people. And again, we can all quibble and talk, myself at the top of the list, about what the United States could have done, should have done, might have done in previous years and currently, but it's no comparison to 1973. For the first 25 years of the State of Israel, there was a virtual arms embargo. The same Harry Truman recognized Israel, placed an arms embargo on sending arms to Israel. Yes, there were a couple of breakout exceptions. Israel paid top dollar for some weapons in the Kennedy years, Johnson years, but as war became more and more imminent in '73, the United States made very clear that it was neutral. The 2 loudest voices for neutrality were James Schlesinger, the Secretary of Defense, a Mushumit, a Jew who had become a Christian, who very eloquently said, I meet the press the Sunday before the war, said the first day after Yom Kippur, he said that if the United States takes sides in this war, it will bring the Soviets in, it will inflame fury throughout the Arab and Muslim world, it will endanger American troops and bases. And the other guy was Henry Alfred Kissinger, a man who was raised in an Orthodox home, left Yahudut, eventually intermarried, who was famously argued we must be even-handed so we can be an arbitrator, we can help bring peace. We can't take sides. And I quote, he said, "We can't tilt in either direction," end quote. I had worked for a great American, Hubert Humphrey, 2 years before in his presidential campaign. He had run for the nomination again in 1972. The year before, he lost to a man named George McGovern. They picked up the phone and he called his arch enemy, the man who beat him for the presidency, Richard Nixon. And I, as Scoop Jackson did, first ever on the Jackson and Humphrey's team, ended up working for Richard Nixon's re-election. I was a national vice chairman of Richard Nixon's re-election campaign, Democrats for Nixon, unindicted to this day, and very proud of it. Very proud. My great achievements. I worked for Nixon. I'm proud of it. Let's listen to the story. Hubert Humphrey called me. It was the 2nd or 3rd day, Chol Moed Sukkot, so the war's like a week old. And he said, "David, I just got a call from Moshe Dayan, the defense minister of Israel. There you have 3 days worth of ammunition left. 3 days. He told me it'll be the end of the Jewish state." I understand there's a movie about Golda Meir has the story in it. But until now, I mean, he called everybody he could call to get help. Humphrey said, "I set up an appointment, 4 of us, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. Jacob Javits and Ed Brooke, the only African American in the Senate, both Republicans. Scoop Jackson and Hubert Humphrey. The 4 of them are meeting with Richard Nixon at 4 o'clock today," he said. Nixon said he's inviting 2 other people to the meeting, Schlesinger and Ed Humphrey and Kissinger. You can get through them, he says. He got the airlift. When Hubert Humphrey told me the story, he told me I could not repeat the story as long as any of the participants were alive. I had lunch with Shimon Peres, Senator Moynihan for 20 years. I had lunch with Shimon Peres in the 21st century, and he said to me, "I've heard varying reports about that meeting." I said, "Yes." He said, "I've heard the following." "Yes." "Is that correct?" "Yes." Elder statesman, future president of Israel. I said, "Well, you heard what I heard." That's all I can say. He had the story right. This is what happened. Each of the 4 senators made an emotional plea to Nixon. A rational plea. Well, it's good for America. Well, it's important. Schlesinger gave a blistering response. The President of the United States turned to his Metternich, to the architect of realpolitik, Henry A. Kissinger. Said, "Henry," according to Hubert Humphrey, Henry Kissinger began to cry. "Mr. President, I lost 87 relatives in the Holocaust. What do you want me to say? At which point Richard Nixon turned to Schlesinger and said, call Prime Minister Meir, send her whatever she needs. And we did. And Madera Teva, an intermarried Jew who had wandered so far, had a hooray tshuva of some sort and helped save the state of Israel. And since that day, the United States has continued to ship weapons to Israel, sell weapons to Israel, and give weapons to Israel. The United States has given Israel since that day an average of over $2.5 billion in aid a year. And it all started with Henry Kissinger's crime. Okay, that's just keep that in mind.